Just feel it. Just feel it.
These guys in the funny suits are making gene chips. The little needles are dropping tiny, nearly invisible bits of DNA onto glass slides. And where did the DNA come from? From babies. Thousands of them.
I run a company called Cambrian Genomics. We make DNA and we sell it for money. We'd like to really allow anyone in the world to become a genetic designer. If you want to build a creature right now, what you would do is you would log on to a website called Genome Compiler. You would design an organism just by dragging and dropping these Lego DNA pieces. That information would be sent to our printer. We would print the DNA out for you. A lot of people think, like, because everyone will be able to design DNA, that everyone will have their own custom designer dinosaur that's hanging out in their kitchen. The problem with that model, though, is even though we've reduced the cost of making an organism, it doesn't reduce the cost of verifying that that organism is safe. We're not going to send it to you. We'll send it instead to a contract research organization, which does have significant resources to be able to keep it controlled and safe. And then they can actually take your DNA, put it into an organism, and boot up your new creature.
In a closed-door meeting at Harvard University on Tuesday, nearly 150 scientists got together to organize the Human Synthetic Genome Project. These days, when Harvard isn't organizing black masses for its students, it's holding Bilderberg-like meetings to create a totally synthetic human genome. Their goal is to artificially synthesize all 3 billion base pairs or chemical letters in the human genome. Unlike the original Human Genome Project, whose purpose was to read the entire genome, this project, the Synthetic Human Genome Project, will Frankenstein into reality a transgenic human. This process, of course, will require gutting out a human embryo and replacing it with synthetic DNA. Not only will this pave the way for rolling out synthetic humans off the assembly line, it will pave the way for human cloning as well as chimera hybrids of all shapes and sizes. Flying pigs may soon become a reality, ladies and gentlemen, and with gene drive technology, they could have the code built in to force their synthetic genome onto subsequent generations. Clones breeding clones to naturally weed out the population. This will be a pivotal component to the post-human agenda. Since these future clones and transgenic humans will have little choice but to implement the plans of their originating laboratory, sooner rather than later we will see transgenic humans born with cognitive augmentation, half man, half machine, able to upload to the communications grid and ready to download their orders for extermination. And if they can do this to humans and animals today, imagine what they're about to do to the food supply. They're already making glow-in-the-dark plants that can auto-photosynthesize. They're preparing for a dark planet, ladies and gentlemen, where global dimming comes to fruition, where a Google disk blocks out the sun and where you have to pay for natural light. They'll put a meter in your FEMA districts for sunshine consumption in the future. It won't be a carbon tax, it'll be a global cooling tax. You'll have to pay for sunlight, you'll have to pay for purified air, and of course, this is after they replace all the jobs with autonomous machines. This isn't a dream from far away in the future. You can already order a synthetic girlfriend today and it'll call you master. You can already retain a synthetic AI lawyer, and you can already find your replacement in factories today throughout the world. Terminators are coming. Synthetic humans are coming. Drone wars are coming. And clone wars are almost here. This truly is the last stand. This truly is Generation Z, and you are the resistance.
Declaration of Independent States. Whenever any form of government becomes destructive to its own ends, it is the right of the people to abolish it.
Scientists talking privately about creating a synthetic human genome. I need you to understand the implications of this technology, where this is headed, the danger of this. They say scientists are now contemplating the fabrication of a human genome, meaning they would use chemicals to manufacture all the DNA contained in human chromosomes. Now, this is a follow-up to the Human Genome Project. You remember that? You had the scientists with the money from the government's large research project where they went in and they analyzed the human DNA. They sequenced the DNA genome. So basically what they were doing is studying it, analyzing it, trying to figure out what the different components were. Now they're at the point where they want to build it from the ground up. That means you're not going to have father and mother. This is beyond Brave New World. where they went in and they had the hatcheries where they would create the eggs, where they would multiply them out, separate them out so they would have different strata of society. Remember, they had the alpha, the betas, the gammas, deltas, the epsilons. Some of them they would withhold oxygen from so that they were mentally deficient, crippled in other ways. Then they would have the others that they would enhance. Then they would follow that up with training, special training. So they had this stratified, government-controlled world government. But of course, it goes all the way back to Plato. And if you look at the elements that all these different social engineers have, you have the elements of a rigid class society. Plato didn't have the alpha, beta, gamma, delta, epsilons. He had the philosopher kings. He had the guardians. He had the people who served them. They also had a crude kind of eugenics even back then, where they would say, well, we don't want the children to know who their family is. So we're going to create this hedonistic society where everybody is having these orgies. Nobody knows who their parents are, so that the only mother and father they know is the state. But then, of course, if they wanted to have a kind of crude eugenics, they would drug certain individuals, make sure that they made it, and then follow the offspring, take that offspring for a particular purpose. And then at the very bottom of this, of course, was education. If you want to destroy the society, you don't blow it up with bombs. You had Obama's mentor realize that, Bill Ayers from the Weathermen. Okay, he stopped bombing society. And what he did to really destroy it, to deconstruct and destroy our society, was to get into education. That's where he's been hanging out for decades. And that, of course, is where Obama is now focused on education, with the Department of Education doing the types of things to reorganize society. But when you get to the point that they can go in and they can synthesize individuals, what are they going to do? Are they going to, as the article points out, they're going to make copies of specific people? Are they going to create special super soldiers, people that are bred to be that? Are they going to, as one person who blew the whistle on this said, would it be okay, for example, to sequence and then synthesize Einstein's genome and then maybe train him in your schools to make him evil, okay? Unlike the original Einstein. Now, he exposed this, but the guy who put this together at Harvard Medical School, George Church, says, no, there's just a misunderstanding. This wasn't aimed at creating people, just at creating cells. Well, you know what? Let's not quibble over semantics. That is what they were trying to do. They called it, to start out, the Human Genome Project 2, HGP2, the Human Genome Synthesis Project. They said it was going to be an invitation to meeting at Harvard, so the primary goal would be to synthesize a complete human genome in a cell line within a period of 10 years. This is very concerning, folks. I mean, going back to, this is like Jurassic Park, really, but far worse, because it combines they're not creating dinosaurs, okay? They're creating a monstrous society here. Brave New World is far scarier than Jurassic Park. And it is something that threatens our society far more. And if we go back and we look at this, at the very end of this article, one of the guys makes this statement. He says, our ability to understand what to build is so far behind what we can build. I just don't think that being able to make more and more and more and cheaper and cheaper and cheaper is going to get us the understanding we need. Well, Michael Crichton, as a writer, put it much more succinctly. He said, just because you can build it doesn't mean you should. And they say, well, we went through and we looked at the ethics behind this. You are making this determination without the rest of us being involved in this. And the ethical considerations are far different than the technical considerations. And this is something we need to understand, how this fits into this kind of scheme that the New World Order, that the globalist elite have had for 2,400 years, going all the way back to Plato, going through Aldous Huxley. They want to engineer society, and they want to create the individuals that are going to give them empowerment and control.
Get your hands up high, reach and touch the sky. This is how it's done. Come and get you some. Just feel it.